Hello, everyone. This is Hayk Grigoryan. As you may know, as of today, there are about more than 10 protesters over the last 2 weeks who have been arrested and in jail. I mean, obviously, there have been many more who have been detained and released within the regulatory 3 hours that are required. But it's disturbing that more and more protesters are being actually arrested with criminal cases that are sometimes serious for simply participating in these protests, and potentially there is an allegation that it's also provoked by provocateurs who are like in one way or another supporting or being supported by the government, both of those. So we'll talk about that with our guest, Hayk Grigoryan. And Allison, of course, is also here as well with us. We're sitting here at Santa Fe Cafe near the France Square. Today was the weather was pretty warm, and it was immediately felt by the size of the crowd. I'm not going to go into the details. You've seen the Twitter feeds, and I go check mine just by itself. It should be fine, sufficient. But needless to say that this protest movement has not died down, as some on Twitter would like us to believe. Any reports about our death are definitely exaggerated. So, to the chief topic, and I really would appreciate, because it's really important, is for us to understand how serious the repressions by the Pashinyan regime are. They may not seem serious when you take an individual person, but when you collectively look at it, as I was trying to describe, over the last 2 or 3 years, the Pashinyan government has used, frivolous criminal cases and has probably targeted, I don't know, hundreds, if not thousands of individuals. Collectively, this amounts to a huge, I think, a huge toll on the individuals, because I personally know people who, just because of their familial relations with this or that individual, high-profile individual, they have been charged with like frivolous and trumped-up charges, and they're just trying to prove their innocence for 3 years. And there is no question that eventually they will. And in all these cases, people are, either the charge gets thrown out, they have some kind of a plea deal where it's like almost zero sentence, and essentially it never goes to a judgment that is, for the prosecution. But in reality, cumulatively, and also individually, it disrupts a lot of lives, because many of these people spend time in jail. But even if you're not in jail, even if you get released on your own recognizance, you cannot leave the country most of the time. If in case you come to a protest and you get arrested again, then you go back immediately to jail. So this is a very effective way to put pressure on the opposition, to prevent them from causing more trouble, and to silence, essentially, some of the biggest voices of dissent, regardless of whether the charges against them are just or are true or not. Anyway, without further ado, I wanted to introduce Hayk. Hayk, why don't you give us like a few sentence bio and tell us what you're faced with today.
Hello, Ron. Thank you for hosting me today. It was a pleasure to speak with you and also have an opportunity to talk about this important aspect of our opposition's story here. So a short story about myself. I was raised in Armenia, got an education here at American University of Armenia. Then at some point in 2014, started working at Arar Foundation as a chief executive officer. And that time I had a privilege also working with people who at this day also are under charge right now. I'll talk about that later. Then in 2015, I went to the US for my professional career development. And for over 6 years, I was living in Chicago. And my professional specialization is data science, financials, equities. So mostly at this point, I focus on investment management business that I'm running in the US. But I'm involved in Armenia. I know what's going on here on a daily basis. And so 2018 movement was something that lots of people joyed about and supported. unfortunately, very quickly it got ugly, and right now we are seeing deeper and deeper this disengagement with the society in Armenia, and how this is turning into tyrannic regime.
Hayk, you mentioned Arar Foundation, and for those that don't know, one of the arrested individuals, Avetik Chalabyan, is the founder of that foundation. So let's just begin by, we heard the news last night that Avetik Chalabyan was arrested along with, I believe, another lady, I think Emma. I don't know the last name, but she was a single mother, and she was taking care of a minor. And I don't know if we should go into the details, but like, I mean, it is truly ridiculous to me to conceive that a very high-profile businessman, philanthropist, could be entangled in such a sort of low-level crime, and the supposedly it's so serious that it requires his jailing. So what can you tell us about Avetik? How is he doing, and what do you know about the charges against him?
Well, I do know Avetik. His personality, he's a true patriot, a ward of his man, and I truly believe that wherever he is in this situation, he has an inner strength in this situation, and eventually all these challenges that he's going through will make him stronger, and this is not going to break him. I truly believe in it, and I am with his family, and I hope that all these things will get cleared soon. But the thing is, the thing that saddens me, honestly, the most is the reaction of some intellectuals and members of the society that tend to think that they are cool, and that they are like liberals, but at the same time they have seen a resume. They know a resume of Avetik, what he has done for the country, and what he's still doing now, and his track record, and they tend to lean toward this justice system, like rely on these justice systems to make a call whether a person of such high moral might be doing something. And I think that speaks volume of their own value system and their own embedded interest. And that's something that really saddens me, that before 2018, we had the civil society that something was happening. They were like raising lots of noise about it. But now people who are really backbone of this country, they are under like very suspicious criminal charges, are taken into custody, and they do nothing. They speak nothing. And that's something which is very horrible for our society. So yeah, what can I say about that?
And for those that are also that don't know, we had Avetik on our the same live last week, and he spoke about his ideas about the movement. Personally, I think that he's a very charismatic person, and I sort of saw myself as a future potential sort of a defense minister, or someone who would be a very committed and patriotic civil servant, regardless of the position that he was given. Where do we go from here? But maybe even before that, like I think you talked a little bit about it, but what do you know about the others who are currently under arrest? For instance, I know of David, this person who moved from Russia to Hadrut with, I believe, 3 children. He got a passport for all his 3 children so that they could eventually serve in the Armenian army. He fought in the war, and and he was one of the arrested people, and he lost his home, he lost his home, homeland, and now he's here and in jail. I don't know, what are you, what kind of,
Well, yeah. We can really structure what's going on. Like if we look from a higher altitude, we see a very targeted criminal charges against people who might be the future of this country, also a political future of this country. Like they are very, very focused on whom they forward more serious charges that contain criminal consequences. And if you look at them, all of them, most of them are repatriates, like Avetik as well. He for more than 20 years, he studied in the US and worked in Moscow, in McKinsey, a global consulting company. And he was a senior partner there. So I think very few people from Armenia, originally from Armenia, born here, got into such a high career level. And that speaks volume as well. So, yeah, to summarize, I think this regime is really trying to play on, this old regime versus new regime, old being corrupt. And then what I think they are doing strategically is trying to silence those people who are very clean, professional, intellectuals, patriots, that they can't put anything on them once especially they become well known among the society, and the society will see alternative to all these old political system and people. And so they trying to bring this game into this old and new and keep things in a loop. That's, I think, what they try to do. And the way to break it, I believe, is to really raise awareness of these cases and share the work and track record of these people who are a backbone of this country. So people see that there are really alternatives. There's really elite that can lead this country. Yeah, that's what I can say on this.
On that note, and also Allison, I'll let you chime in. But on that note, I made a Twitter thread today about all the people, this as much as I could find. If you find any other information, feel free to tweet about that yourself, or feel free to find my tweet about this and retweet. We really need to raise awareness. We really need to show to anyone who might be on the borderline, who might sort of doubt that the opposition, whether the opposition is truly genuine, who might actually start thinking, well, maybe Pashinyan is crossing the line, or has crossed the line a long time ago, and has been able to sort of mask that for a long time. So we need to be able to reach out to any potential, mind that we can change or heart that we can win over.
Yeah, I would just add, first of all, regarding your point about the liberals that we would expect would be speaking out and raising their voice right now. I mean, not only are a lot of people silent, but on the contrary, are buying into the narrative, the official narrative, which, and very rabidly, and even attacking, I noticed some Avetik, and attacking anyone who's kind of in the middle, who's shocked by this, and basically, buying it hook, line, and sinker, which is quite disturbing. So rather than speaking out and calling for at least a full investigation, just really agreeing that this is right, and this regime justifying it, exactly. The other thing I wanted to add is that my background is reporting in the Middle East, and this is straight out of the dictator's handbook, which is first you arrest the moderates. You arrest anyone who's respected, clean, you know, presents the kind of third way that these people who are kind of wavering might be hoping rises to the top. First, you get rid of those guys, and then it's you or your polar opposite that either people are afraid of, despise, whether for, you know, justified or not, but you create this, that's the strategy, and they're doing it. That's all I would add.
Yes, that's a good feedback. That it's a playbook of these Middle Eastern autocrats. I imagine that even this strategy might be something that is not made in Yerevan. So, like, Avetik is doing institutional work in defense, and isolating him is also something related to national security. He's running a fund that is focused on military industry and technologies, and he was one of the first vocal voices that said that the budgets on the defense, on military research and development expense is moving back into the budget because it's not being spent. It's sabotaged. At the same time, we don't have still a high official in Genstab, right? Yeah. For a few months already. So all this is already indicating that, for better or worse, our current government at least is a hostage to foreign policy and foreign pressure. And getting rid of this regime, sooner rather than later, is a chance for our country to get into its back. So that's I can say, and what they are doing here, really targeting these moderate people, educated intellectuals who can run this country in a professional way, is undermining all these efforts.
Right. And just, you know, if you haven't heard, like during last week's live, we asked Avetik Chalabyan about, you know, if just in case you think that he might be related to the formers, you know, we asked him why, you know, he doesn't want to get up on the stage to talk, or whether, you know, and he said something to the effect that, you know, he felt that the stage was not ready, and he made reference to the X and Y parties, which are well-known, like opposition sort of parties, as potentially being sort of challenging. So he's definitely not, he's definitely not a supporter of the traditional old regime, regardless of whether you think that's good or bad. And the movement that he's associated with, 5165, we have seen like them present here every day. They are here not because they associate themselves with the former regime, but they are here because they also want to remove Pashinyan at all costs, and this should be a unifying, a pan-national goal of Armenians, at least a national goal within Armenia. Yeah, and yesterday we also talked to Manuel Solomon, and obviously at that time we were not aware, actually, or what were we? No, we were not aware that he was arrested. Avetik was.
2 nights ago.
Oh, that was 2 nights ago. That's why. Okay. Yeah. Yesterday we were aware during our live, but it was like very new still, so we didn't know what was going on. The only other thing I can say is that, you know, these so-called liberal human rights activists were very busy today blaming the opposition youth, like for, I don't know, sometimes even 17-year-old, like 18-year-old kids, for attacking these elderly people who are clearly seen, like this was an incident in Gyumri last week, and they were clearly seen throwing eggs at the opposition, verbally abusing them. And I don't condone any act of violence, but whenever you have so many people in the outside and with so much high tense emotions, it just takes one little spark. And I just wonder where those guys, who told these people to go and throw eggs and do the provocations, and how come they had like a camera ready to film the event?
I spoke to somebody who was there, and he told me that they showed up and they had these pensioners like 5 rows deep with cartons of eggs and all the Pashinyan like media cameras ready to go.
Yeah. And
now that's the story that's being circulated all over social media of, Dashnags hate elderly people and are beating them.
That's it. Like this movement has proven that they are not part of Armenian society or something like such dire terminology.
It's so disingenuous. It's so like really. And even with Avetik's arrest, I saw there's recordings and he's bribing people to come with 1,000 dram, and like that's not even enough to buy a sandwich. First of all, I mean
the Jingalov huts that's being given here for free is more than 1,000 dram, I think.
Well,
but besides that,
it's very silly. But the amazing thing is, people are just regurgitating this. They're parroting this. They're just buying up these absolutely like kind of silly things. And I was walking here to the square today, and who do I see passing me by is Girzo in some blue velvet suit, surrounded by his guys. And I'm just looking at him, and I was thinking, if I threw an egg at him right now, I wonder what would happen to me. I think I would probably be in jail. I don't even want to know. I wouldn't even try. So it's so, this pearl clutching by our friends.
By the way, just whenever if you hear this recording, please do not trust it under no matter what, because this government has been known to edit things, even though it may be his genuine voice, which we don't know yet. We need to follow the legal process, but they have proven that they have been proven to edit things in out of context. So they may, splice some critical words out or critical parts of the conversation and make it look very, very incriminating, as they did with Ashot Minasyan, also known as Ashot Yerkat, who's, and they admitted in court that the recording with which they arrested him was edited. So that's what we have. And
if you go back through the U.S. WikiLeaks, it was the U.S. Official who identified Pashinyan, I believe, as what? The yellow journalist?
Well, yeah, Pashinyan, I think, was... I guess he was not the most ethical journalist, probably. That was a well-known fact. And these methods, collecting dirt on other people who, by their life, don't deserve that at all, is despicable. I can't explain it. It's so gross that you really want to get rid of this regime a day sooner rather than later. And they basically used this jockey that was just
DJ?
No. I mean, there's just a regular student, not like someone who was basically going after collecting dirt and then telling, hey, we have this. So they were provocators, the same way as the provocators that are throwing eggs. And by the way, I would tell you 2 anecdotal facts. So one, the days before of these events, in my Facebook and tweet, I started noticing these threads. I'm trying to keep as open as possible to get all these, like, shares and stuff. I got noticed some information already leakages that, well, people are bribing, etc. So they were really preparing the population on this narrative that something is like brewing. The second is that on these provocations and anti-provocations, the U.S. Embassy is regularly sending messages that is saying, well, stay away from these movements because there might become violent due to provocations and anti-provocations, opposition or anti-opposition rallies or something like that. It's not exactly the word I'm telling you, but in the U.S. Embassy records, basically, it was already forecasting that this type of like provocations are going to happen. And that is very sad that really we are falling into this trap where instead of going into this dialogue and trying to solve the problems of our society and country, we are trying to find some victims and among the best. And that's the saddest thing, that the society is just as a whole is eating its own, the best sons of their own.
Reminder, we're talking to Hayk Grigoryan, and I'm Havik Manocharyan, and we have Alison Tahmiz and Muse here as well. Hayk, let me do a complete change of topic, or not complete change, but and if you have any questions, feel free. I'm looking at the people who raised their or request to speak. But until then, where were you in 2018, and what did you think about the events of 2018 when they were happening?
Thank you. A good question. I remember 2018 when I was in Chicago, and I knew that Sir Sargsyan was going to be, have his this in April 9, I think it was the day when he was going to take an oath another time, and there were some movements I wasn't following through, but when things started gathering momentum, I started following, and I was really supporting generally the movement of the people, thinking that this is a chance to reflect the new reality, urges of the new generation, to get more freedom, and also to get a better governance. I was hoping, I was probably not that, I was naive. I was hoping that the governance might get better, less corrupt, and that will give us a chance in upcoming war, because I was expecting that war is going to happen sooner or later. Avetik at this time, by the way, was one of the few voices that was saying that these people have other intents. He knew them personally. He knew Nikol Pashinyan. I know that he knew him, and he even was really to give away. He was basically helping the Yerevan as one of the of civil and political members of the spectrum. He was helping them with, he was in contact with them, and basically he was always trying to be mediator and integrate different voices, and that's unfortunate that these people, they basically came and made this hammer justice system. Instead of building institutions, they started hammering all these institutions, good or bad, more established or less established. This was like a Bolshevism, which so I turned against, and I understood that this is something that is going to end very badly. Actually, the day when Pashinyan did his live, I think it was on second or third day when he became a prime minister. So he did his live from a presidency and said, well, now we are going to live better. Investments are going to flow to the country. everything will be great. And I said, well, what? This is nonsense. He's just...
He's been there for 3 days.
Yeah, he's been in there for 3 days. And instead of saying that we need to get ready for harder time, we need to prepare to make our generation better, we need to work now to make it tomorrow. He was talking about the fruits today. And that was the deep populism that I thought that, well, this is going to end badly. And unfortunately, that happened.
Questions, anyone? Or comments? Or rants? Vahe Minasan, you've been on this live for many days now, and you haven't said anything. How are you doing, and do you have anything to say? Who else do we have? We have Pizza Aker. Pizza Aker has been commenting regularly. So Pizza, Utok, what do you have to say? Yeah, this thing is so laggy. Some people are requesting comments, and it's either not working. Okay, Vahe John, go ahead.
Sorry guys, I'm usually at work and I'm listening in, trying to catch as much information as I can. So if I don't chime in, it's not because I don't want to. It's just I've got other things going on in the back. But I appreciate all the information you guys are giving, and I'm gonna stay quiet for the most part, but I'm gonna listen in.
Same as Vahe, but a quick question. Do you see a trend of the protests going down, and is there a fear that people will just eventually stop coming out?
I mean, today definitely there was like probably twice as many. I mean, there was a lot of people. It was not one of the peak days that I've seen last week. But I don't know if we can measure this by, just like sort of quantitatively, to be honest, because today the protesters were able to accomplish more, and as we saw yesterday, 2 days ago, a new tactic being employed, which is to surround government buildings and keep it blockaded for about a couple hours, close to the end of the workday. To me, that's a minor inconvenience for the employees, but everyone is waiting for more decisive and more escalatory steps. But I think that sort of what I heard from the opposition leaders was that the more people show up, the more things we can do. So from that perspective, I think that while yes, the protest is growing, it's growing not at a pace where we could see sort of orders of magnitude difference between days. And that means that sort of the results that we also expect would be adjusted based on that. And what was interesting, I personally like, they announced that also tomorrow there won't be any rallies or any marches. Tomorrow is going to be just sort of discussions, and I believe there was a cultural event, so there's probably going to be a concert at night. I don't know, I thought that we were just gaining momentum, so I don't know what their plan is, and I don't want to second guess them. But maybe they have some plans that we don't know of. But they did promise a large rally on Sunday. So without I'm hoping that tomorrow, or the day after, we can have someone from the leadership to really grill them on this tactic. And but obviously tomorrow and Sunday are weekend days, so there is no closing of government offices, there is no closing of streets. I mean, it would be it would just have marginal effect. So maybe it doesn't make sense to do things on weekend that are sort of the same kind of things as on weekend.
Maybe we can update the audience on what actions have been taken and what are being planned, if you can tell us.
For instance, do you know if I think they have 3 days to file formal charges. Do you think that they will move to arrest, keep him locked up for a long time?
Well, they are trying to prolong the decision as much as possible. Yeah, by law they have 72 hours, although they arrested him yesterday night, so it's already 24 hours past. The court decision should have been done today, but for some reason the side that was pressing the charges was not there. They said, well, we are overwhelmed with work or something, and the court moved tomorrow, but still they have to do something like in 72 hours. But I think that this was a tactic to keep him at least a day more. Maybe I can go back and do a little bit constructive criticism on the opposition in general. I think generally criticism and feedback is something that will make everyone stronger. So I think I've been in one of the rallies. I've seen the kind of the vibe around and who are people in the rallies and what the atmosphere is there. So on the plus side, the people who are coming they do know why they are coming there. They do see the reason to be there. They're mostly middle upper income professionals. Also, think people who are from regions from Artsakh, people from Artsakh who now in Yerevan, or who have high rating in Hoida, maybe in Aragazotan and stuff like that. But I noticed that these slogans and generally the communication is still going back to the past. I think we should look at future, like communication and slogans, and the momentum should look into brighter future. What we should do to change this? Like we still going into this negation, into like fighting against something, into the struggle. Like these are all maybe due to our nature or due to these huge pressures that we are having in the system. But I think we should look more into like addressing each of the layers of the population, what with their concerns, what the solutions will be, how the roadmap will be, what are the myths that that are gone into our society. So like all these things, like in more structured way, and that's also part of that whoever is talking about this should already entail that with their leadership. Like you cannot expect someone who was in corruption talk about corruption being eliminated, like eliminating corruption, and that's something that I think is making the voice less convincing.
Do you think?
Mm-hmm.
So, do you think in 2018, Nikol Pashinyan gave enough of those future-looking messages?
No,
because we also heard
that time people were fed up. That time people were fed up. So psychologically, the people were triggered by the failed promise of Sersaks and not to get elected second term, right, or third term, whatever. Like change after the changing the constitution. That was the main trigger. So people are animals, and we don't like injustice. That's something that if it's very strongly hidden, like there was a public promise and it was failed, and there was this accumulated level of both with maybe subjective or objectively, but people were reacting stronger to anything. Now it's not that like that. Now I think you should build your narrative in a way that become convincing for everyone. You cannot just with negation get the voices. You know what I mean. That will ask, especially after the war, when many people are crushed emotionally and stuff like that. You need to kind of build a base, and to build a base, you need to be very proactive, positive. Something that I think Avetik, for example, with proper program could do with the team. But that's my positive feedback. I'm not trying to say that what our opposition is doing is wrong, but I'm trying to say that there are better ways of doing this, from my opinion. But at least the baseline that opposition achieved, I think, was to raise the voice of people in the streets of Yerevan that lowering the Artsakh issue is a red line. And I think that was heard. And that is something that is already a big achievement, because maybe there was an illusion already that Armenians gave up, they are not going to fight. We are going to fight, and it's a long journey, and we'll pass it.
Yeah. I don't want to say I disagree with you, and I don't think I disagree with you, but it is amazing that in 2018, because Serge promised, or according to them, promised to not run and then ran, that pissed them off more than 5,000 deaths or 4,000 deaths.
I agree.
You know?
I agree.
So
Definitely, I agree. That's something that so, like, humans are emotionally such irrational people that we should live with it and try to find the keys to this issue. Like, we need to just think proactively how to resolve this, how to make. We shouldn't think about this as a dilemma. I say, oh, I don't understand it, so I don't get it, and just go straight line. You need to take it as is and come from there.
Manuhi, I saw you clapping. I wanted to see if you have anything to add to what we said. I invited you to speak, but I don't know if that worked. Or anyone else, for that matter.
Hi, I'm very far removed from public speaking, so I apologize. But it's just it triggered me because I can't imagine having felt the losses that we felt, and people not being enraged, and then them being enraged for a couple of cent electrical bill hike, or if a lawmaker or Sarkisian promised to not run again and he did. It's just outrageous to me. That's all.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay. Well, anyone else want to chime in?
By the way, on that, all these people who are not coming against Nicole regime now, they are having some rational, in parentheses, justifications. Let's say they say, well, he hadn't have a choice, like 5,000 losses are not on him and all that. It's stupid things, but every day we should really talk about all these arguments. And basically that's the way to kind of get rid of this narrative that he wasn't doing this or that, and especially also contrasting, like all the time contrasting, saying, well, think about yourself during search time. If something like this happened, what would you do? And now what are you doing? Like all the time put people into cognitive dissonance. At some point or time, they are going to move into like another state.
Yeah, that definitely. I think this is. So I was talking to an academician friend of mine, and he was describing the atmosphere at his university, where it feels like this is this societal divide that we have, which is fueled by misinformation or disinformation, is so strong that it permeates all aspects of life, where you have even university professors who believe completely false things, and based on that, they sort of act on that. And this is, I guess, also an attribute of the social media age that we're living in, where people are easily influenced. But yes, I think that definitely, whenever you have a chance to justify, to correct or to influence people and to change their point of view, I think you should be able to. But also, I'm very worried about like the sort of these taboos that are being broken over and over. Things like it's okay to maybe it is okay to leave Artsakh to Azerbaijan and to give them full sort of knowing, like give them some autonomy and give them some rights, and maybe then that'll be okay. It won't be that bad, knowing full well that we're sort of condemning people to genocide if they even decide to stay and live there. But even if they don't, that's genocide. Nane requested to speak, so I'm gonna try to give her approve that. Let's see, it's not working so far. Okay. Nane, go ahead, please.
Yes, I had a question like about the methods like of the protest. Like we're coming together and we're surrounding a government building like few hours and then we leave. But I think Nico is going to the Netherlands. I mean, he's living his life and he has no intention of leaving. I mean, Serge left in like 9 days. So should we do something else? Like, should we surround where he lives or where he works for hours? I don't know what, but I don't know how effective this can continue, like that's like my question.
I sort of alluded to that, and I think that the answer that the opposition leaders gave was that the more people show up, the more things we can do, alluding to the fact that the numbers that we have today are not sufficient to do anything bigger. Like one thing I could say, maybe if we surround the parliament building early in the morning and they can't go to work, that will be like that will have an effect, or even the government building. But yeah, I think that the opposition is the leaders of this movement are sending a message that we need more people. But at the same time, I'm seeing that tomorrow is being declared as a no rally day, so maybe they are themselves regrouping and trying to figure out what to do next, which I don't think is completely a bad idea. When you make mistakes, you learn from them. And what I know for sure, at least for myself and the people that I associate with, I mean, it's going to be pretty impossible for us to go back to our normal lives after, let's say, if this is not successful. And there are a lot of people who have risked their jobs. They have there are police officers who left their jobs, for instance, in order to join the movement. So the issue is that things are so polarized that something has to give. And I don't know if the opposition does not succeed. One of my friends was saying that we're going to see more repression, and all those people who are very disenchanted and dissatisfied either would have to leave, would have to be locked up so that they don't cause any problems, or otherwise isolated, because I don't, a lot of people don't see how they can exist in this, in this society or in this political system.
Yeah, I would like to just regarding, I mean, what you mentioned about government buildings. I mean, I'm curious, Hayk, actually, if I'm getting the timeline correct, the day that Avetik was arrested, during the day, there was a demonstration outside the prosecutor's office. And if I remember correctly, Hovig, that, 5165 movement was very much trying to bolster this case brought by the parents of the soldiers who were killed, who we've interviewed on this podcast, to say that, okay, and I think the parents went to give their testimony to the prosecutors in this case that they brought against Pashinyan. And then the next step was supposed to be that Pashinyan would also come in to be questioned. And I know that I believe it was Avetik's colleague who said that, you know, there's grounds to... yeah. Do you remember what he said exactly? I don't want to get him wrong, but I mean, I think they were pushing for the prosecutor to take action and at least bring Pashinyan in for questioning and saying that there's grounds for arrest. Mm-hmm. So I wonder, and I'm curious what you're hearing from your side. You know, was this do they believe this was the trigger? I mean, this is definitely a very high stakes situation that's going on.
Well, yeah, if you go into the political partisanship, if you raise your voice on political issues, then you are becoming very vulnerable. That's true in our Armenian political culture. You can work on some very nice things for 10 years, and no one tells you anything. But once you are in politics, they are targeting you. That's fact. And I hope that one day new future leaders will have a chance. So sorry, we have an echo here. So I hope at one point new political leaders will build institutions where politicians can run on politics without any prosecution. Definitely Pashinyan, I'm very sure, you know, I don't doubt he can even shoot at people, do another March 1 if that's needed, just to stay in power. That's the nature of power, and whatever he's doing there to meet his political goals. Like he was a person that came to power just for power. That turned out to be the worst case, that a nightmare that our society is living now. I'm not saying that there are not other political groups that have the same power grab mentality, and one of the main issue that society needs to resolve is how to move ahead the team of leaders that are going to solve the problems of the country rather than doing power grab play.
When you said that he could do a March 1, for those who are listening, who are new to the Armenian context,
yes, March 1 happened in 2008 when there was this political post-election unrest, Levon Ter-Petrosyan versus Serge Sargsyan elections. Basically, they were the main first and second place running, and then March 1 was a violent eruption of the opposition, which was led by Levon Ter-Petrosyan, and basically that moment there was use of force to put things into control, and that's something that put a brand on our political system for years. That's I'm afraid, and you remember, by the way, when Serge Sargsyan and Nikol Pashinyan met in 2018, Serge Sargsyan said, well, do you want to have a repetition of March 1? And that was, by the way, also another reason that the people flooded the street in Yerevan after his comment. So that was like very, very... I'm afraid that these 5,000 losses that we have, lives that we lost, young people, might not have the same effect as such thing in the center of Yerevan. But that's a matter of politics and how things are run by history. You know, even in Paris, like during the revolution, some unrest in Paris is going to have much more effect than some war with Spain. That's a matter of life.
Edmund, you had requested to speak.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Also, I'm not very ready, and what I'm going to say is very deriving for what we are talking about. But you know what, guys? You know, as someone as like me, as like an Armenian, you know, works in a company, you know, outside Armenia and everything, you know. I was listening to a song called "Sakhsa Sara" by Akhtav Naver, and I just broke down and cried. And then my wife was asking, "What's happening to you? You know, why are you just crying? Why are you going crazy?" You know, back in the war in Artsakh, actually the first war in Artsakh, I've lost two of my uncles, and in this recent war, I've lost two of my brothers-in-law, and what amazes me is about the foreign journalists. What the foreign journalists they get in protecting Pashinyan. Now, I am not against Pashinyan, and I'm not with Pashinyan, but you know, there's a war happened. We lost the war, and you know, sadly for me, I lost about 4 of my students, which I was mentoring them, and I've traveled so many times in Armenia, you know, and of course, you know, my wife, 2 brothers that passed away. So I would always wonder if someone, I'm not going to say outsider because that sounds racist, but I am going to say maybe a foreign journalist who's covering the recent events in Armenia, what do they get? I'm not going to be with Pashinyan against, but I'm just going to say, what do they get either covering the opposition or covering to protect Pashinyan? And this is what puzzles me. You know, Armenia is a very, very small land. In Armenia, you know, I know we are 11 million around the world, but in Armenia, there's about 2.9 million. And that, you know, despite my huge experience in journalism, you know, I've covered war in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Kosovo, you know, that thing still puzzles me. Thank you very much, guys.
Honestly, I didn't follow foreign journalist comments recently. What's happening in Armenia? I think foreign journalists.
Let me simplify the question. Why doesn't international media find it important to cover these protests? You know.
I am not talking about international media. We all know what the international media is doing, whether they get funding from Russia or whether they got funding from the EU or the West. I am talking about individuals who are taking a stand against the opposition, and from the other side, who are taking a stand about Pashinyan. I am not going to be I'm not going to be the radical. I am not going to be ideological. I'm just being, you know, being in the middle, you know. This is my question. I'm just talking about, you know, what I'm just talking about what people like in their own ideology taking a stand about whether it's against Pashinyan or whether it's with Pashinyan.
So I can think about ways why international journalists might support Pashinyan. First, it's just a framing bias. Like they just by framing know that Pashinyan came by popular vote, and therefore is kind of following this liberal Western society's framework of being elected and being a legitimate leader. So that's one thing. Also, reinforcement bias, where when they are hearing liberals mostly around them, and liberals, by chance, in 2018, turned out to become governance. And right now, the civil society is empty because no one is really having grants from European Union to raise this issue that we are seeing.
Everyone who was part of civil society, or most people who are part of civil society, are now either part of the government or get funds from the government themselves, as opposed to getting funds from Western sources to cover human rights or some other issues.
The third is that also there's this simple framing shortcut that this opposition is pro-Russian. I don't know where it came from, how it came from, but this is something to consider as well. I definitely think that there might be some forces within the general movement that have other intents that cannot be ruled out. But what is true, people's desire of having Artsakh free and in free will is definitely out of choice, out of question. And the last thing,
sorry, there is something very, very documented. You know, Shamil Basayev.
Yeah.
Shamil Basayev was hired as a mercenary to fight for Azerbaijan back in 1992.
Okay.
Right? Yes, and in 2000, when Shamil Basayev was interviewed, this is before he got killed, sadly, because to be honest with you, I really appreciate this guy. He had an interview with the Russian TV, and they asked him about the Shushi War at that time, and in his statement, which is it's available in Wikipedia, by the way, in his statement, he said that. Yes, Azerbaijan is fighting for Karabakh only to keep their face up, but the Armenians are fighting for Karabakh because for them it's a matter of life or death. And this is why, I'm quoting him, and this is why I ask my fighter, just go back. Don't fight the Armenians anymore. And strangely, because he said it in his statement, there was this Tashnak fighters, which they were fighting at that time. And he said that, oh no, I cannot fight people which they are fighting for their land. I cannot fight people which is a matter of death and life for them.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah.
By the way, this is all available, by the way. You can go to Wikipedia, you can go to anywhere and enter. You just type in his name and just put Shushi next to it, and you can find his statement, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I'm trying to connect with your last question that you asked, but I can give you also this perspective also, although you live also outside as well. But during the September 2020, I see how biased New York Times was, for example. And I just unsubscribed. I thought, well, if on Artsakh issue I'm seeing so much bias, imagine what on other issues I have no idea about, they are telling us, you know. And that's that truth that unless you go deep or you have a local knowledge, you cannot get a true unbiased information. That's the sad reality of current times. But the Armenian issue is always seen from Western media, I think from international perspective, how these are through Russian relationship, through Iranian or Turkish, and that's
and the oil from Azerbaijan.
Sorry?
I said, and the oil from Azerbaijan as well. You know that Bulgaria now, they just, Gazprom, they cut the oil with Bulgaria and then...
Absolutely, absolutely. We as a nation had a strategic mistake in early 1990s. We didn't understand that the war is not about, self-identity only. It's about a survival of states or making them viable to thrive, and we thought that Azerbaijan can get away with this, but unless we should have think thinking strategically and didn't allow them to develop unless they allow our freedom. That didn't happen, and we are now paying a price. That's fair. The life is fair. Like if you don't do your homework and you don't defend yourself strategically, then at the end of the day, you are going to lose your political weight as a nation.
Let me try to switch the topics a little bit, because this is obviously, we'll have so many chances to talk about this issue, and we have been over the last weeks. But since we have Hayk here, Hayk, what is your position at Arar? And can you tell us about some of the, results or some of the things that you're doing, whatever can be disclosed at this point, in terms of what the foundation is doing?
I no longer work with Arar at this point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I worked there 7 years ago.
Oh, 7 years. Okay, I misunderstood then. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So what I can tell about the events of 7 years ago is that we work with Ministry of Defense to understand our strategic capability of competing with Azerbaijan.
Yes. And
we found out that really Azerbaijan at that point was at the peak of its power in terms of demographics and especially in terms of economics. And you remember in 2016, oil prices collapsed. That time we were already seeing that their production was peaking. They were already, although investing in Shah Deniz, exporting gas to Europe, but gas was not going to replace their oil revenues, but that was decreasing year by year. And we calculated that time that the cumulative hardware that they were buying would be at a peak against us in a range of 2018 to 2020, which was their strategic window to attack us. And that unfortunately happened. I think if after especially revolution, if we had, of course history doesn't like ifs, but if we had the proper governments and we really put more defenses and put more efforts into rebuilding the army, even these 2 years would be enough to have a strategic deterrence.
Okay. Okay, well, in that case, since you have experience doing these types of analyses, what do you think is needed from, let's go past today. Let's say it's a month from now and there has been a change of government. What are the key areas that Armenia needs to improve on and work on in order to, in order to sort of, continue like ward off Azerbaijan and maybe even sort of be able to influence negotiations in such a way that we get some of what we lost back?
So I'll put this into 2 or 3 horizons. So on a short term, of course, the biggest effect will be establishing a good political system. And by the way, Avetik also mentioned about that. Like people were asked, that's ridiculous. They are saying that like he was, bribing people, but people were complaining him why he was not really taking money from rich oligarchs or other like people who are offering him money to run a political campaign. And he was saying like we cannot do that because it would not be a grass movement. It will not come from people. And then these few people will have their own political agendas. And at the end of the day, we will end up with the same bad system. So what I mean here is that especially, so Armenia has a big problem that we don't have a developed economy and we don't have a developed middle income class, which does not allow development of good civil society and whoever is interested in Armenian economy and political system developing. So I think that is something that some burden diaspora should take, coming, actively living here. There are ways, seriously, guys. In California, like, especially if you are in a situation where you can work remotely or you have a passive income, just leave your house to rent, come here, live comfortably, and be involved in processes. Be volunteer on different work. That's a very good way of enriching Armenia, both culturally and supporting the political system. So that's a short-term thing we can do. And by the way, that also, like, as if you come here, let's say, imagine hundreds of thousands U.S. citizens come to Armenia, that by itself become a shield against any attack to Armenia. So it will save the state, like with these tail scenarios that might happen. On a long run, of course, I remember the Chinese proverb that's saying that if you want to get something rewarding 7 years, plant a tree. If you want something in 20 or 40 years or 100, invest in education. So education is one of the key elements that we need to focus on, and not only just some technical education, but also at a higher level. People need to understand how societies are working, how people are making decisions, and they be able to understand what's good or bad. Because right now, as I said, I'm seeing many supposedly bright people that are just saying, well, let's see what the justice systems are saying. And they don't see the forest behind the trees. So, yeah.
Let me give you a very tiny example of how much the diaspora love Armenia. Actually, I am Lebanese Armenian, and I'm going to say only about the Lebanese Armenians. There was a TV interview about a couple of years ago on MTV Lebanon, which is a very famous TV in Lebanon. And at that time, the Minister of Tourism of Lebanon is Armenian. Because, in Lebanon, it's the Armenians in Lebanon has a very good place in the elections, where if you're not good friend with the Armenians, you will not win the election, especially in the key parts of Beirut and Bekaa Valley, which is come with Anjar, and south of Lebanon, which is called Saida, which is called Sidon in English, and Tripoli as well in the north, right? And then at that time, the Minister of Tourism of Lebanon, he was Armenian. And there was this game show in Lebanon. And in this game show, the presenter asked the minister of, I honestly can't remember his name, but anyway, it's all on YouTube, and I will send the link now. I'm going to search his name, and I'm going to send the link to everyone. It's in Arabic, by the way. And then she asked him, this is we're talking about the Minister of Tourism in Lebanon. And the presenter asked him, who you favor? You favor Armenia or Lebanon? And the guy, he just simply said Armenia. And of course, he had to resign a few days later because they said you cannot say that thing. But for people everyone who are distancing the diaspora from Armenian, who are distancing the diaspora from Armenia, we have a minister who risked his job, who risked everything, to say that he prefers, and the minister, he's a minister of tourism, he just said that, I prefer Armenia over Lebanon. And that's a very clear example on how much the diaspora cares about Armenia. By the way, the guy lost his job, and he cannot. But he didn't only lost his job; he cannot be elected to be again any deputy or any other formal government position. He cannot apply on it anymore.
He's been banned.
I think that's the same one who, I think someone commented that tourism from Turkey was up, and he was like, "Yeah, you know, we're not that happy about that, but okay."
No, but you know,
No, but let's just kind of segue into the next thing, because I mean, yeah, I would say Avetik's also an example of somebody
yes.
who came back patrioted, and like you said, some of these, yeah, kind of the best and brightest, and the not to say that, you could come from the outside.
You have outside
Yeah,
perspective, which
but
is
an outside
enriches the country. Right. That's a thing. Like we need to become a political nation, you know. So first of all, whoever has some power in other countries should be prudent enough to keep their power. And the second is that we should make our country stronger, and especially whenever there is this cataclysm outside, bring everyone, like from Ukraine, especially from Russia. You know what's going to happen in Russia? Like there are how many? Like maybe even 3 or 4 million people, Armenians in Russia. I'm not sure that their lives are going to get better there. And if Armenia happen to keep sovereignty, and I hope it will do, and flourish over the 10 years, we are going to have a huge influx of Russian Armenians from Russia, because that thing is going to take years there.
Since we were speaking about Lebanon, we have a Grunk contributor, Katya Peltekyan, who wanted to speak. Katya, I have a sense that you don't fully agree with Edmond.
It's not. I just wanted to remind him of his name, Avetik Gidanyan. I don't think he was banned, but the Tashnak party decided to put him aside. Like if the Tashnak party wants to renominate him for any position, he will get there. That's a different story. So greetings from Lebanon, dark, no electricity Lebanon. I just have a comment or maybe a worry, or I don't know what you're going to consider. Do you think that the presence of ex-presidents Kocharyan and Sarkisyan is making some, if not many, Armenians not want to join the demonstration? I see a lot of comparison similarities with the revolution that started in Lebanon 2 years ago, when the people all of a sudden, rebelled against the corrupt government and all the officials, and they were saying all of them should go. All of them means all of them. They were doing fine for a whole month or maybe 2, and then some of the opposition politicians started joining them, and that's when the rebellion died. And we are in a dire situation in Lebanon, economically, security-wise, whatever. So do you think Kocharyan's and Sarkisyan's presence is making people stay away from the demonstration? That's one. The second thing is I see a lot of comments on Grunk when they say, okay, if Pashinyan goes, who else is going to come? Do you want Kocharyan or Sarkisyan to come back? As if in Hayastan, there is no one else. I don't know who the opposition thinks should take over the government, hopefully when Pashinyan leaves.
Is not supporting actively this movement because there are political forces that participated in the way to eliminate that, unfortunately, is it should be very, very intricate. I mean, I think it's not really possible. Probably a natural evolution might be like the one that might work is that I'm just saying this as kind of a very rationally and coldly, but is that the active stage of this movement goes away, and the stage is being cleared from all these old names, and then with this potential of people coming up against because they are not satisfied still, but they just didn't see the thing come through these leaders. New leaders come in and basically from a fresh start, basically leverage whatever was already there and start moving up. That might be one of the way of doing this, but right now I don't think that this conflicting and different political forces might go away voluntarily to leave a place to a new generation of leaders. And as I said, probably new generation of leaders are being born right now, whom you see that both sides, or mostly, of course, the governance side is targeting. I think will be they will be the future leaders.
May I just add my own thoughts here? So just like we in 2018, Armenia rejected Ser Sarkisyan because of corruption, or that was a major linguistic element in the speeches. We know that corruption, most of it was perceived rather than actual corruption. There is a corruption perception index measured by the EBRD, where the difference between the perceived corruption in Armenia versus actual corruption was one of the highest in all the countries. So whether that's true or not, people felt that there were so I want to basically allude to the fact that the names of the foreigners being mentioned over and over may that also be a perception that the foreigners are having a role here. For instance, Ser Sarkisyan has gone to the step of excluding himself from future leadership. We know that Robert Kocayan is actually he has appeared in the crowd one day, but he has never sought a speaking role. And I think that also he's deliberately staying away from the podium. We know that the Republican Party of Armenia, even though they are members of parliament and they have a role in the parliamentary opposition, they are playing second fiddle right now in this movement to the Dashnak Tutun, which was never really in power. Like, they were a coalition partner, but they were never in power in Armenia. And basically, this protest movement Dashnak Tutun has a lead, and they have promised an inclusive effort. They have promised to release a name of 250 individuals who will, they're assuring us will be acceptable to everyone, and they will be free of the former names, the bad names from the formers. So, Katya, I want to basically maybe sort of challenge you and challenge everyone that whenever you read that the opposition is coming back, or that it may be actually just the same thing as media manipulation.
Could I add something? This is Allison. Yeah, I would just say, if we talk about the stage, for example, the stage is open to everyone. It's there's been quite a variety of people up there, and I think if we look back at the last election, there were many new parties, including 5165, which Avetik is part of. But they, as I believe, did not get any seats.
Yeah.
Correct? So you had Hayastan Dashink, you had who else? Yeah, exactly. So, you can't also ignore that they do have, whether it's just, the institutional organization that's, across the country, but they actually do have a base, which I think what has to happen, and I think why Hayk said this is kind of an intricate process, is that you need to weigh that, you need to balance it. You can't just be exclusive, you can't just sideline people and just have new people, but you also don't want just the old people dominating. You need I think probably a mix, and it needs to be somehow democratic. And that's, I hope, the process that is going on right now, where there's kind of a dialogue between all of these forces, and that I do believe that everyone in the square is there for the same reason. And that's the important thing, which is they realize we're facing a huge existential threat, and that we might not come back from. And this is the time to put aside petty differences and get over it. So I hope everyone will.
Yeah.
Can I say
I definitely
something?
don't.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to, like, I was reading some news in the yeah, I live in the Netherlands, by the way. I was reading some news in the Western papers, and what I saw was like, I don't know where, but someone said like, oh, the FSB, the Russian Secret Service, and like Kocharyan are trying to take power from the democratic Nikol Pashinyan, blah blah blah. So what I'm seeing right now is, and you know, there is in the Netherlands there's a Green Party, like leftists, and there's an Armenian like who is in there, and she is governing some city. And she was like, when Nicole came to the Netherlands, she was very happy, and she was like posting pictures with him. So what I want to like bring in here is that what you see, like the people in the media against this movement don't really care about Armenia. They just want to hit Russia. So what I mean by that is, if like Biden says, oh, no, Johnson of England said, we're going to fight till the last Ukrainian against Russia, because they're not dying. Ukrainians are dying. So I think we should really not forget that there are people who want to hit Russia, and they're using Armenia. And I don't care if Kocharyan had previous ties to Russia. Maybe he had, but this is like this is a crisis of losing countries, and there are people, forces who are making Armenia lose lands because they want to hit Russia. And I'm not really pro-Russia or something, but you know, Russian forces are in Artsakh, so we can be fully pro-America. And we should really like remember that Western media are not our best friend at this moment. So yeah, this is like what you said, media manipulation. We should not forget this.
Well said. Well said. Whatever Mane and Alison they said, it's absolutely gold, and I do agree 100. No, actually, I do agree 1,000,000%. What do both they said? Manejan, about what happened in England, by the way. You know, Boris, he didn't really want to get Ukrainian war, but because he, during the coronavirus, he messed up so much. If you go to the internet and search a word called Partygate, because apparently they had parties when everyone was in lockdown, so he wanted to derive the public opinion from his mess up. And of course, as you said, sadly, you know, these Western countries, they control everything, you know, what we do. And because he wants to get away with it, and then he's sacrificing Armenia. And I would say, well done for what you said. And what you said is absolutely true and absolutely right. And again, Alison as well, what you said is absolutely true and absolutely right. Thank you.
Oh, well, on that fantastic note.
I'm in the process of publishing all these Twitter space conversations on our YouTube channel as well. We really need your support, and we appreciate it. Yeah, we'll try to bring you more information and more interesting guests as we can get a hold of them. And yeah, thanks for listening in.
Guys, Hovik and your colleagues in Gurung, you guys are doing one of the most amazing job. By the way, despite my huge experience in journalism, I am addicted to your show every night.
Well, thank you. Have a good night, everyone, or good afternoon.